Good evening. Tonight we find ourselves in Acapulco. We spent the day hanging out with friends and visiting with the freedom community of Acapulco. Our newest arrival, James the Drizzle, came to Acapulco only a month and a half ago. He's a very, very interesting person. I really enjoyed meeting him. So we were talking about the different things in different countries. We were exploring different drinks, Mexican drinks, local guerrero drinks like horchata, and juices, fresh fruit juices. We went to a couple different places today. As we were talking, we started talking, there was a Mexican couple at one point. We were visiting a friend and there were a few people and there was a Mexican couple. They asked us about how we like Mexico, and somebody joked that Mexico is not what they told us it was. And that started a whole barrage of propaganda talk. Like, what was it like in your country? And one of the friends who's from Australia, he said, oh yeah, in Australia, every TV station, when they talk about Mexico, they talk about how dangerous it is. New Zealand is safe, but Mexico is dangerous. And then, from Poland, apparently as well, the propaganda is very negative about Mexico. There's a lot of warnings, you're going to get kidnapped. And James actually traveled. He drove all the way from the border all the way into Acapulco. And he said that he's never had a more pleasant, friendlier drive, like he's talking about the people helping him along the way. And really, like, the propaganda, it's a lie. The whole thing is a lie. And I mentioned about how when I lived in Eastern Europe, in Poland, before the wall came down, there were all sorts of propaganda things that I witnessed myself firsthand as a young adult, but I remember these things, One thing was when the shipyard workers were striking, they wrote on the roof of the shipyard that they're striking 13 days, right? And the TV crews were there. And on the news, it reported that they were striking for only 23 days, this 23rd day, right? But then I went to visit my uncle in a different part of Poland where the miners were striking. It was far away from the shipyard, physically far away from the shipyard workers, the other end of the country. The miners were like, well, why did the shipyard workers stop striking? They betrayed us, they betrayed the cause. And we were quite surprised. We were like, well, what are you talking about? They didn't betray you guys. They're still striking. The shipyard's locked up. We saw it yesterday. My dad ended up going and developing the film, and he brought it back to the miners and showed them the photos that were taken the day before as we were traveling by train. And we took pictures of the shipyard. We just went by the shipyard by train and we could see the roof, every train going back and forth could see that roof. So there was a lot of messages that the shipyard workers would write on the roof exactly because of that, because propaganda, because the news will twist and take things and make them different. And, just like that movie that just came out on HBO, right? Twist and even, all the different circles of people in Acapulco are mentioning about that whole event, that whole movie, how much falsehood there is, right? That's something in my, how much falsehood there is in that movie. But yet that's the propaganda, right? So in Canada, in the US, in Australia, in Europe, we have negative propaganda for Mexico. Why is that? Why do you guys think that nobody wants us to come here? I've been here for 2 years now, and I've not been kidnapped yet. And there's not been any kind of violence that I've witnessed. I mean, I heard about violence happening nearby, but the violence was very specific people in specific places. It wasn't like general population was involved. And in reality, I think right here, there's a lot less kind of stuff like that happens. It's very interesting how there is like a specific prism. The general control mechanisms want us to look at certain countries, like Canada being super great place to live and Mexico being such a crappy place to live, and you're gonna get kidnapped and robbed, and the food poisoning. Oh my God, you're gonna get food poisoning. Okay, that food poisoning thing, that's true, a little bit, because you have to get sick like once or twice from the local whatever in order to develop the resistance or whatever, and then you're fine. I haven't been sick for quite a while, like a year or something. I used to get sick before when I first came here. But then I also kind of learned about what works for me and what doesn't, and what I can eat and what I can't eat. And I think that's a self-exploration here. We were talking about propaganda and how propaganda controls our perception of certain things, right? Be it countries, right? The powers that be, the communication that comes across to us, the messages that are given to us are a certain kind of message in order to give us a certain kind of perception, a certain opinion about a certain thing, right? It's all a bit of opinion forming. Who are you going to let curate your opinion? Like, do you want your opinion curated by somebody else? Would you let it experientially form an opinion firsthand about things? Basically, Mexico is so dangerous that you have to follow the same rules that you would in Canada. Like, don't go out after midnight in a bad part of town. It's even less dangerous, I think, because here people are always willing to help. And in Canada, I've not always felt that people were always willing to help. Like, if I knocked on someone's house in the middle of the night, I'm not sure if they would help me in Canada. But here, 9 times out of 10, they probably help me. Like, people here have a culture of supporting one another. And I think that's a really cool thing. And there are many cool things that we could all be propagandized about Mexico. But unfortunately, only the things that are broadcast. Most people are only exposed to the things that are broadcast by the news media. And a lot of those things are simply exaggerated or just not true. That's the truth. And by the way, one time when I was living in Poland, I saw news media from the USA filming about how badly Poland is still damaged, and they went in the back neighborhood where the garbage was, and there was some broken down walls, because truly there was some damage from World War II. There were broken down walls, but they were like, in an inner courtyard of some kind of place, right? And people were fixing it, but sometimes it takes a while to gather the money. And they filmed that particular place. And basically the narration was that Poland still hasn't stood up from its knees after World War II, because look how run down, fucked up buildings are. Turns out that wasn't true either. Right around the corner, everything was renovated and everything was beautiful. These perfectly artistic restored facades of the buildings, and it was just some unforgotten corner that was not done. I'm willing to bet that the propaganda about most other countries will turn out to be not true. Or if it's true, it's probably like seriously exaggerated. I just haven't had good experience with learning about other countries from the propaganda machine. I think it's better to do it firsthand, because the stuff that you learn is completely revolutionary. Have a good night, everybody. I'll talk to you tomorrow.